anything from this wide range of questions. And 如果你要用中文提问，那也行。So I can take either language of questions, whatever people are most comfortable with. I see people already have, there's already one guy in the yellow who has a hand raised. Let's start there.
Where did you get the dice or like the size to add up to 7?
Where did I get the dice? Where the opposite sides don't add up to 7. So what I did is I went to Google, custom dice. And I found all these different manufacturers of custom dice. The custom dice can give you dice which have a smiley face on them. You can have a Pokemon on it. You can have whatever you want on it. So I just said, please custom dice with this weird pattern. Actually, since you're not in a hurry, I was preparing this talk when I first got the idea, then I was giving the talk, and I didn't have enough time to make nice custom dice. The nice custom dice take about 1 or 2 months to create. Because you have to get into the line and so on. So if you go and search, you can find a way to make better custom dice than what I made. I did the rapid manufacturing custom dice. 3D printing doesn't work, by the way. If you 3D print dice, we tried that too, it looks really fake. Other questions? It can be about anything.
How did you become an IMO coach?
How did I become an IMO coach? Okay, so I always actually really liked teaching. What really happened is that I was a student doing all of these math competitions before. I did math counts first. And when I did math counts, my coaches were volunteers. Not anyone who was supposed to do it. And so when I finished math counts, I thought I should give back by trying to volunteer also. So when I was a high school student, I coached middle school math counts at my local middle school. I volunteered. Then when I went to college, because in high school I'd gone on to do these IMO, I'd done this Math Olympiad stuff. In college I went back and volunteered, I went back to contribute to being a coach, an assistant coach of the US Math Olympiad team. And somehow people liked my teaching. I didn't know why. But when I did that, then people said, keep coming back. So I just kept coming back. And at some point I'd come back so many years that I was one of the older people there. And then I became the national coach. Effectively what happens is that whenever the US chooses a national coach, we need to pick somebody who can maybe do the problems, that's actually kind of important, but also somebody who enjoys teaching. And ideally, it would be good if this person can try to increase interest around the country. And ultimately, there are only so many different people who might be willing or able to do such a position. And because I happen to be a professor at Carnegie Mellon, and Carnegie Mellon, the university, thought it was an okay idea for me to be doing that, then it all worked out. But unfortunately, sometimes there are very many very qualified people who they get a job, and the boss says, since when does that help us earn more money? And the answer is it doesn't. So then it becomes harder. But effectively, I was one of the people who could do this. And I love doing it. And in fact, I decided that it would be one of the things I do as part of my life mission, which is to help increase interest and ability in math around the world. Yeah, this guy here.
Why do 3D printed die look fake?
Okay. So I know this experimentally that 3D printed dice look fake because it's like this. Have you ever played an old school video game where it's all pixelated? You know what I mean by pixelated? It's like all blocky. Yeah, the 3D printed dice, maybe our resolution was too low, but it looked all blocky. And so it just looked like it was not nice. That's what happened. Because it was like 3D with pixels. Other questions? Let's take one from Karen.
Hello. Hey. I just want to let you go back to your high school. Think about you starting your ninth grader. So how do you spend your whole 4 years regarding study habit, your 学习习惯?
Sure, that's okay. Chinese is not easy.
And work balance. Have some difficulty. I don't know if through your whole adulthood or teenager, you have been so into the mathematics, you never get bored of it. You just constantly study. That's called talent. So for regular people, how do you overcome your bored or in something?
Great. So I heard your question, so I'm going to re-say it with a more clear microphone. Basically, the question was, what was my high school experience from 9th grade? What was the study habits? And how to deal with motivation questions, right? Because you study all day. So let me give you the answer, which is I actually didn't spend all my time doing math in high school. I didn't. In fact, to this day, I'm very bad at just doing what other people tell me to do. I'm very bad at that. I always like to come up with my own things to do. But that's actually one of the things that many students don't have as much practice with. You see, I got very used to taking a big blank space of time and choosing what I want to do to challenge myself with those blank spaces of time. And I really love that ability to say, I want to use these 4 hours for something productive, and I will choose what that is. Now, what that is, on weekends, might have been doing 80 problems. Because that takes 3 hours. I thought that was really interesting because these are hard problems. Maybe you notice a thread. The only things I like doing, even to this day, are the things that are hard. If something is easy, I don't want to do it. If there's something which somebody already told me how to do it, I actually find it quite boring just to do. I want to find some way that I can add my own creative angle to do it, and then I'll be happy. Or if it's a task, if the task is something that's actually hard, I will feel very good by achieving it. And this is actually the key dynamic switch that I actually want to encourage in everybody. It's not fun just to do tasks other people give you and check them off. That's actually not fun. The fun part is to say, after doing this, I managed to do something that I couldn't do yesterday, and I feel good. And that's what I chased. So when I was in high school, I didn't only do math. I was also on the debate team. Actually, this is a warning to the parents. The reason I wanted to be on the debate team was to learn how better to debate with my parents. That was the entire motivation. It was actually pretty. For students, highly recommended. I'll say highly recommended, because if you're a student, if you're a teenager, it's not actually that much fun just to be like, parents tell you to do something and you just secretly don't do it. That's actually not much fun because you can get caught. It's much more fun to learn how to explain why your way is better. Oh, okay. Anyway, but what I mean is not in a way of like confrontation, because at some point then you have a better dialogue with your parents, and you can both come to like some agreement on at the end. Okay, fine. We see why this one is one way or the other way. But I'm just giving these examples because I spent an enormous amount of time preparing for debates. I also learned how to do public speaking, right? And also I spent an enormous amount of time doing computer programming. I thought it was fun to try to write my own video games that would try to compete with whatever the current video games were of the era, which is 1990s. To this day, if you go to my website, my personal website, you can still download and still play the video games I wrote in 1997. But I'm just explaining, I was entirely around finding new challenges every day. It's not about just trying to follow a recipe of saying, take as many AP classes as you can. I didn't take that many AP classes. I didn't even take AP English 11th grade. Right? I just simply said, I want things that are really hard, and I'll go and chase those things, and I will learn how to do things that I should not have been able to do the day before. And that's very different from someone looking for a recipe, like, maybe I just prepare for these competitions, get this score, and then I can apply for such and such opportunity. I wasn't thinking about any of those things. And to this day, that stuck with me. When I went to college, I went to Caltech. Caltech is famous for being a place where everyone takes as many classes as you can, and if you do, you're cool. I took as few classes as I could. So what I did is I looked at the rules and I said, what is the minimum number of classes you need to take to graduate? And I took exactly that minimum. And I used all the free time to learn how to set up computer servers. I was involved in some student organizations. I actually got married the day before I graduated from college. I did a whole lot of all these other aspects of how to assign time. And because of this, to this day, I became a professor, and I use all of my free time. Well, it's not really free time, but a professor has a lot of flexibility on what to do with their time. You balance your different tasks that you do, and one of the things I chose to do with this free time is while flying back from China to Los Angeles, I decided to just come visit you guys for a few hours. I continue to Los Angeles tonight. Right? But I'm just giving these examples. This San Francisco layover, this is a layover on an international connection. The layover was created yesterday. I had a backup plan. I had a backup plan of another ticket. This is how a mathematician organizes life. I had a backup plan of another ticket. But effectively what happened is, I was previously scheduled just to lay over and go straight to LA. And because I was talking to Bo Xu in Beijing, we said, maybe we can do this. And so he contacted Shengmeng, and we did this. That's why we have this. But then, basically what's happening, as I balance my weekend, now I'm doing this, I fly to LA, I get to LA at 1 a.m., and tomorrow at 10 a.m. to noon, I have another talk in LA. And then I continue back home on the overnight flight that gets back to Carnegie Mellon University Monday morning because class starts. But I'm just sharing, like, it's not like any of this is a recipe. Nobody told me this is how you go through life. However, I always want to find a new thing that I couldn't do yesterday. That's the other reason I was in China. Because maybe you can tell from my accent, my English is the English of somebody who was born in America, grew up in America, and spoke English to their parents at home in America. To me, speaking Chinese was something I was not very good at. In fact, my Chinese was pretty lousy as a high school student. It was pretty lousy. But then I decided I wanted to learn Chinese. And what better way to learn Chinese than to go to China and give talks in Chinese about math? Because then you have 200 people forced to listen to you. It's perfect. You can get all the practice. So I practiced for 3 years, just going to China, giving talks at all these different schools, university, whatnot, all in Chinese. But that's just giving an example, maybe more of an answer than what you were expecting. But this is the answer, which is the general answer, called learn how to challenge yourself every day to do something you couldn't do the day before. Don't follow a recipe. And at the end, no matter what you find in life, you'll go and do. Okay, yeah. Let's take a question from this side.
Professor Loh,
Yes. Represent your question.
no, I just want to take this question. There are some questions from their website last night. So I'm going to start with one of them. How do you prevent careless mistakes in any?
Okay. How to prevent careless mistakes? Did you say in anything?
No, it's a very good question.
Oh, it's the last two words in anything? Oh, it didn't say in what? Okay.
It's in, the last two words are in the A.
In the A. Oh, I thought I heard in anything. So what I want to answer is that I'm pretty sure they asked about something like any, and my answer would be just prevent careless mistakes in anything. So there's nothing special about careless mistakes in math contests and careless mistakes like forgetting to tie your shoes or forgetting to put away your lunch tray when you're done with lunch. There's a general attitude called just be a careful, conscientious person. I think if you learn how to do that, you make less careless mistakes in everything you do. But if you focus on make less careless mistakes in math, then you become that math person who forgot to button their shirt the right way, right? You don't need to focus that way. I'll share a bit. This is influenced by my parents. My father was this extremely careful person. He's also a statistician, so I guess that's why he thinks about all these probabilities. But somehow, in entire life, he would always say, when you do things, do it properly. Be careful. If you whatever, don't worry about if it's math or if it's something simple like lock the door when you go out. Just like whenever you do anything, think in the second part of your head, is that what I meant to do? Right? And if you do that and you do that with your entire life, you make less mistakes on Amy also. So I actually strongly encourage this because I think too often we look only on the math competitions and we say, can we make this thing better? But it's much better to make it a lifelong thing because that everything you do is just more careful. I'll give you a trick for high school students that maybe you don't actually want to use, but this is how I learned to be really careful. In high school, I thought pen looked better than pencil. It's pretty. And the lines look so bold. But one of my teachers said, there was a chemistry teacher, he said, if you use pen, you can't erase and you can't cross out. Once you write it down, it's down. And so I said, challenge accepted. And I took all of my tests in pen. You can't change. It's like you write and it's done. If you do, I did this, it's not just chemistry, everything. And if you just learn to write properly the first time, then you just learn whatever you do, you just double check in your head before you do it. I have less careless mistakes on anything that way. And if you think about it, look, when they wrote the Declaration of Independence, did they have an eraser? No. So it's possible, right? And all of you, anyone who's old enough to remember the typewriters that had no backspace key, it used to be that you couldn't press backspace either. And all those people who know how to type without pressing backspace, they're amazing. Our department secretary at Carnegie Mellon is one of them. So this is a general answer of how to be careful. Just be careful. It's just more fun. You get more things done in life that way. Okay, let's go to your friend.
Aren't there erasable pens?
Aren't there erasable pens? Yes, there are. But that wouldn't have been as much of a challenge. And also, they didn't look as good. So I'm a bit of an aesthetic person as well. The erasable pens in the 1990s wouldn't give a clean line. They would the line would look somehow like a pencil line is not a completely clear mark. Maybe today's erasable pens are better. Yeah. The world has changed since 20 years ago. Let's look, actually, can I do this where we just alternate side by side? And if there's another one you want to bring from the center, we can. But that way each side gets a turn. And that way each side has a microphone. So you can basically have the person have the microphone. And when you have the microphone, stand up so that I can see where it's coming from.
So can you use math to cheat or get an advantage on the stock market?
Can you use math to cheat or get an advantage on the stock market? So don't break any laws in the stock market. That one definitely gets you landed in jail. However, the way the stock market is regulated is it's based on very clear guidelines. Because that's how you prosecute who violates. If you read the guidelines, you will find ways to do better. This is why you have enormous numbers of, not enormous numbers of people, but enormously successful companies with people who effectively find ways to notice some pattern happening in one part of the stock market and figure out that something else will happen somewhere else. And so this is actually a job. There are people in New York City and maybe even San Francisco who all day look for these patterns in the stock market. I myself actually worked at one of these companies before. I interned before at a hedge fund called DE Shaw. Some of the parents might have heard of this place. This is a place which is well known for hiring people with no financial background, but with math Olympiad experience or being like a chess grandmaster or something. And then they say, you can probably figure out how the stock market thing works. Let's start learning on the job. And so I worked there, and we basically found patterns in how certain things like interest rates might affect other things. I can't go into more detail other than we did this, and our approach at DE Shaw was to use research. We used modeling, where we modeled these random processes, and then after we were done, we wrote computer programs. This is actually what grew from my background in doing a lot of programming. We would write computer programs to make systems that would automatically buy and sell stocks or oil or something like that for us. And the answer is it makes an enormous amount of money. So yes, it's possible. Now, can you do it yourself on your own? That's a bit harder, because there are these professionals doing it. But it is definitely something that people do in the world. Let's go back to this side. Who has the microphone? Please stand.
Please stand up.
I think, did someone make a careless mistake when they designed the pedestal and that banner? Because the two flowers are different.
The what? What's different?
The two flowers are different?
They're different? I'm afraid I don't quite see. Oh! So the good news is it's rotational. So I think I didn't notice any flaw because to me the meaning was rotation. But okay, interesting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for pointing it out. They will decide what they want to do with that. Back to this side.
Is it finding out those things about the stock market basically breaking the law? Like, you can just make a ton of money without doing much.
Okay, that's a good question. Is it breaking the law to make this ton of money without doing much? Now this gets into a deep question of what are they doing, right? I will say, depending on who you ask, some people will give you a very clear answer saying that they are actually doing something. And what they're doing is they're figuring out what the correct price is for the stock. And so that's what the usual people who work in finance explain, that their contribution to society is they help to figure out what should the right price of Microsoft stock be. Because if there's nobody doing this trading, who knows, maybe somehow today it's trading at, I don't know, like $35, and it shouldn't be $35, because it's just wrong. And so because they did more research, they found out what the right price is, and they will just take advantage of that error to close the price. This is a deeper question, but it basically has to do with making it so that if today somebody wants to buy or sell the stock, the price they get is hopefully more accurate. Now the question of is this actually breaking the law? It is not breaking the law, because the law was written in a way that is very clear. Do we want to take one from this side? There's somebody there in the white. Oh, this side, this side of the room. Yes.
Hello.
I have one question. So my kids play a lot of video games. So do you think that playing video games will have some positive effects in the academics, especially math learning?
So I think the question about video games and positive impacts, everything needs to be taken in the context of what are the things you can do with your life, right? And what I'll say is that video games are designed in a way so they're supposed to be very fun, and they encourage you to do them because you somehow feel like you're achieving something. This is why what I was talking about is this deeper thing of what makes you happy. If what makes you happy is achieving something that was really, really, really hard, at some point the video game won't actually make you happy. Unless you become like world champion video game player, right? I mean, if you do that, maybe you win $3 million anyway. But I would say for many people, the video game playing that they're doing is because it's giving them small feelings of achievement. And unfortunately, that's what we're also used to. Like, we're normally used to saying, oh, I did my homework. I did these like 10 tasks. I feel good already because I did 10 tasks and every one of them made me feel good. But the moment you switch to saying, wait, all these were trivial tasks. I still don't feel good. I haven't done something that's tough yet, right? That's where I'm getting at. That's why actually I feel the value is to learn challenge. This is what I learned from being a kid when I was working with my parents. And it was not about doing a lot of questions. It was doing a few hard things. And after you do that, you just want to keep doing a few hard things. At that point, if one of the challenges becomes, here's a new video game, I wonder if I can crack this. Maybe somebody will play it a while. But then maybe you'll get bored after a while too. I mean, if you ask me, I think that it's fun to play chess, fun to play these like various board games that are strategic, but I will stop playing as soon as it brings me to a stage where I feel like I'm not really getting beyond learning more things anymore. Not that I have criticism for people who would like to play these. I think it's great if you develop that as a skill. And if your challenge is, can I win the chess championships? Good for you. But for me, that was not one of the things that I noticed. Yeah.
Alright, so
Where's the microphone? Please stand up. Yeah.
So say like one day you found a really interesting problem to think about, and it was like late at night, but like the next morning you had something important as well, so you had to be up early. Like, would you stay up the whole night thinking about that?
Okay, so you see, I would actually think about what's the most efficient way for me to be able to think about that. In the sense that, is it better for me to use my energy now or use my energy later? Right? I would say, what's going on at school the next day? Was the question like, go to school the next day?
Or like something like that, because like sometimes like, you get really drilled into it, and you just don't want to sleep.
Yeah. I would say it would depend on what's going on in school the next day. It's like if there's a test that's important, maybe I want to make sure I got enough rest for it. If not, maybe I'll play with it a little bit. And then I have this idea that if I go to sleep while thinking about the question, maybe I have new ideas when I wake up. I actually do think there's some truth to this. So I actually have a habit of kind of going to sleep thinking about something. And you don't know what your brain figures out while you're sleeping. Right? So I would actually probably prime the thinking. In fact, usually when I find an interesting problem or interesting thing to think about, I will initially fight with it a little bit. That's the most quick initial attack, just to understand what it's about and any simple techniques. And then I might, do something else, like go to sleep. And the next day, if it's during study hall or something, maybe I'll think about it. Or if it's like doing something I don't need to use my full concentration on, maybe I'll play with the question again. That's what I do.
So another question actually from
Yes.
my side, and saying that today's kids like to calculate the answer in the head, not like to write down all the steps, which will cause some calculation error. Do the parents need to be concerned about it and how to correct it?
Okay, yeah, if the thing is that somehow people are doing a lot of things in their head, should anything be done to correct it? I'll pull back to this thing of, it should be about, is the person still chasing challenge? Is the person still doing things that are hard? Because if so, that's not a huge problem. If somebody's doing things in their head, but are genuinely still chasing harder things to think about, at some point they will naturally write things down when it is the most efficient way to move forward. However, some people are actually very good at thinking about things in their head, and maybe what happens is they make a careless mistake because of that. Then the question becomes, how important was it to them to not make this careless mistake, right? Actually, maybe let me add on another piece. Although I like challenge, I was also pretty strategic. I think that's also important. Like, this whole talk was about strategy in dice, but you can be strategic in life. And it's also how I answered your question of, do I think about the problem now or later? That's a strategy question. In a strategy question, you don't say, I feel like doing this now, I'll do it now. I don't just do what's in front of me. I always think, okay, life is not commutative. It's not like I can rearrange orders and everything is the same. So I'm always thinking, should I do this first? Should I do that first? About these things about being careful, about these things about doing it in your head. Maybe my strategic thing is, if I do it more carefully, I'll have more opportunities later because I'll have a better score. Okay, how about that? I'll do that, right? It's that kind of thing. Strategy is about doing something which today, right now, doesn't feel as good, or maybe it feels slower, but you know it's going to pay off later. And I actually will always do this. In fact, if I'm doing nothing else, like just wandering around, I'm often thinking about strategy of, what should I do next? Is this a good opportunity? Is that a good opportunity? Oh, I should switch these two. And I often feel very good about myself if I found a way to strategize by doing the same total amount of work but accomplishing more. So I would say my answer to that question stems more from a strategic question of, why would you write things down? Because you get more right. Oh, but it takes more time to write things down. Okay, is it worth it for me to use the time to write things down? That is for the student themselves to make that decision. And then the question is, does the student even want to get that high score? You will want to get the high score once you think strategically and you say, oh, it's worth it for me to go and work hard for this 1 month and get something which will help me have a better life later, right? But these strategic things are really powerful. And once you learn how to think this way, you have very, very unique choices in life. You don't actually follow other people. Let's take a question from this bank because we didn't have it. Oh, in the front. Oh, wait. Oh, you got one already.
Did you enter a lot of math competitions as a kid? Like, did your parents make you, or did you want to go yourself?
Let me tell you the answer to that question. When I was an elementary school student, my parents had just moved to the United States. Well, they had moved for a while before from Singapore. I grew up in the United States. My parents are Singaporean. We didn't know anything about math competitions in the United States. I spent my elementary school, after school, riding bicycles around the neighborhood, running around with squirt guns, chasing my brother and sister, playing board games, playing with Legos. We had no idea that there was such a thing as math competitions. In 6th grade, I got pulled into math counts by the school, which said, why don't you play with this thing? And I thought it was really interesting, because I didn't know how to do those questions. So it was not my parents who forced me to do math competitions. They didn't even know they existed. I found out they existed, and I said, this is something that's hard, and the people around me doing these things, they're kind of fun. I want to be around these people. And so I actually went to keep doing those. I'll be honest, I don't think my parents actually thought that I would be able to win or do particularly well in any of these math competitions. It's hard, right? But to me, that's a chance to challenge. To me, the value of a competition, to me as a person, was it's a benchmark for something that I should not be able to reach. Remember, I chased challenge. The only way to find that is to get things that are so hard that you shouldn't be able to win them. Then you can see yourself making progress. So I started chasing that. And this is a personality trait I have to this day that has nothing to do with my parents. I'm extremely competitive with myself. I'm not competitive with other people. I like other people. I like working with other people. I think it's fun to have friends. I don't like to go and say, I'm going to put you down so I can be above you. But I'm very competitive with myself in that, I think I should be able to do some problem. It's not about getting some score. It's like, I should be able to do this thing. And so that's what drove me to keep doing those. In the end, if it's only because you're doing something for someone else, that doesn't stay with you. So part of my goal with these kinds of talks is also to show how fun it is just to fight with stuff to prove to yourself that you're worthwhile. Actually, this has something even deeper than like making your parents happy. It has to do with self-esteem. I would say for many high school students and for many middle school students, you're trying to find your place in the world, and you're trying to find a reason for feeling like you have some value. One way is to rely on other people's opinions of you. That's dangerous, because then you're flying in the wind. But once you actually learn that you got some value because you can do stuff that you couldn't do, and that feels darn good, then you don't seem to mind so much if somebody says, why are you making this decision in life? Why are you so lazy? Why are you the Caltech student who takes the fewest classes? Well, because I felt like it. Because I know it's the better decision. And in the end, I actually learned more. Actually, I was in the New York Times for some math problem about a month ago, and somebody posted on a Facebook comment. It was actually one of the Caltech professors who commented that he remembers, it was an article which I was in, and the Caltech professor wrote in the comment, he remembers that one of his distinct memories from when I was a student was he was apparently walking, and I was walking, and I didn't know he was behind me. I didn't know he was behind me. And he overheard me talking to another student, explaining why I take less classes. It was because I wanted to learn them better. This comment was in the New York Times today, like this month. But I'm just sharing, like, you know, everyone else around you might think something. But if you have that own self-confidence, then it doesn't matter if everyone around you thinks one way. Of course, you should care about them. Don't be a pain in the butt, right? But you know, you should get that sense. And so that's actually one reason why I think in the end, you know, you are your own person in your own life. And if you get this way of looking at things, you go quite far.
Time-wise, we're going to take the last two questions. Okay. Before you have another question, I still have one actually from online. I said,
sure.
If the goal is not actually math computation, but just for the learning math tool purpose, right? And will the math computation training actually help for that purpose? And what is actually the difference?
Okay, this is a very deep question because in China right now, the government, for example, is saying don't spend so much energy on math competitions, don't practice so hard. And I actually see why. It's because if you turn the math competitions into a machine where you're just trying to be able to answer those questions. Look, the math competitions were designed so that you can't practice all the problem types. But you should never underestimate how much work people are willing to do. And so there are people in the world who can practice thousands of questions and actually practice all the problem types, and it becomes systematic training. And in fact, there are many people who do this. That will give you high scores on math competitions, and that's why the person asked this question. Because the question says, if you have basically spent a lot of energy practicing these question types, is that useful later? I'm not entirely sure. It might be. Actually, if you're smarter, why not? It'll help you. You'll be able to think better about math. But if you learn math competitions in an entirely different way, which is called don't memorize problem types, don't have anyone ever tell you how to do the problem, just keep fighting with a new problem every day, which is somewhat within your realm of ability, then you will actually use the same amount of time to learn how to think. And that's actually what I think I got the most out of from math competitions. I didn't learn math competitions by training problem types. It was because there was no way back then. Not only were there no schools, there were no online resources. Netscape wasn't even used. Right? It's like we didn't use this stuff. You just go and learn yourself. And once you learn yourself, you can do anything. Because you will just look at a new challenge called, how can I figure out how to solve this unknown math problem? Or how can I make a computer program that will let people do X, Y, Z? I don't know. That's okay. I'm used to not knowing. Let's just figure it out. And so that's actually why, that's the main reason why I actually opened this entirely different line of math classes. It's to just go and say, there should be a way to practice math competitions where you don't practice, but instead you just learn how to think. And I think if you spend your time just learning how to think, and spend a lot of time, I'm not saying like spend a little time, right? If you spend a lot of time learning how to think, it makes everything in the whole world easier, because you're just better at thinking. And so that's my answer. That's the way to go. And then we take one more question from each bank, right? Yes.
How do you prepare to make it the National Math Olympiad team?
How do you prepare to make it into the National Math Olympiad team? You don't. So I didn't. I just did. And that's how it should be. Nobody should say their goal is to make it into the National Math Olympiad team because you'll be disappointed. There are too many people in the world who are very good, so that at the very end, your chance of making it in has chance involved. Don't let your value of yourself be based on whether you made it in. Instead, set a different goal. The different goal is just called, can you try to do the same kind of problems that they do? You know, that you can achieve. That has nothing to do with how other people rank. Now if you want to learn how to do that, you go and look at the problems and you say, I have no idea what this means. That's the first problem. You don't know what the question means. Okay, back it up. Okay, what's an easier question? How about an 80 question? High school math competitions. Those are still kind of hard. If that's too hard, you back it up a little bit more. And you find whatever is at an area where you get the question, where if you saw the solution, you'd be like, I get it. I can see how you do that. But you don't know how to get the solution. You don't know how to make it up. Attack that. So the point is, when you solve any challenge in life, you go and say, am I trying to do something too hard? Like one challenge I'm working on is, how can we get everyone in the world to think math is interesting? It's a pretty hard challenge. You don't go and start and say, I'll solve it today. No, you just go, some piece at a time. I started actually working with people who maybe were looking for challenge in some way. And today, I ended up doing weird things. Today, I end up doing weird things. If you search for me on YouTube, you'll see a video of me hanging out with cheerleaders, doing like, talking about math with a group of cheerleaders. But like, you'll just find all these different ways that you attack a complicated problem from easy ways. So the answer is, don't make your goal to be on team. Make your goal to learn to be able to touch that stuff. And then just back up that goal. Any goal you can actually achieve. An attitude I have in life is if somebody in the world can do something which is intellectual, there's no reason I can't figure that out too. Will I be faster than them? Not necessarily. But if they can understand it, so can I. It's just the brain. So can you. Everyone here is capable of understanding anything that's intellectual. You just need to go back up enough. I said intellectual because physical is different. There are certain things that I think that somehow physical agility, we have more limitations. But mental agility, you just have to work harder. And that has to do with the fact that most people in the world don't use their full mental power anyway. So, that's what I'd say. Last question. We'll take one last question from this side.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars or Star Trek? Oh no, I don't know. The reason I'll say I don't know is I don't know enough about either of them. So maybe let's take a different question, but only because the answer is I actually just don't really know. I haven't really watched either of them much. But that has to do with my own life choices, not because they're lousy. Yeah.
So who is the mathematician you most admire?
Who's the mathematician that, sorry?
That you most admire?
That I most admire? Oh, that one's easy.
Why?
Okay, so there's a person named Paul Erdős. The name is spelled E-R-D-O-S. He was crazy. So the name is E-R-D-O-S. It's pronounced Erdős because he's Hungarian. There's various books out there. There's some book about him that's meant for little kids. It was called like the Man Who Loved Math or something. There's a documentary about him. This is a guy with an interesting story. He didn't have a house. He didn't actually have a family. He just moved around from other professor's house to other professor's house, doing math with them. He co-authored over 1,000 research papers in the last century. He's probably the one who published the most papers in the last ever. But he did it because he dedicated his entire life to mathematics, and he moved all around the country and the world. He would often say he has no home. The whole world is his home. And he would not only work on the research mathematics, he also cared a lot about young people. So he actually often would consider the young people as the future of mathematics, and he would spend a lot of his time talking to them. He was very dedicated to what he was doing. He thought it was meaningful. And he basically worked until the day he died, in his 90s or something. That was his entire life. I find him very motivating because he also was very creative. He was able to come up with ways of doing mathematics that would bring different kinds of math together. He's one of the people who pioneered the idea of using probability to solve some combinatorics problems. He's also one of the people who came up with the first, it's called elementary proof of the prime number theorem. Elementary doesn't mean for elementary school students. It just means not using anything that's too sophisticated. But he would often find very creative ways to take simple things to solve very, very hard things. But I knew his story for a long time, and his story was one of traveling around, trying to have impact all over the world. He was like a butterfly pollinating mathematics. That's actually one reason why today I also travel all around. I see the example that he had set. I do have a family, I do have a house, but because we have air travel now that's more easy to use, I actually basically try to follow the example of going to all these different places to do something good for mathematics. If you want to learn more about this guy, you can search Google for Erdős, E-R-D-O-S. You will find lots of very colorful stories. The guy's very, very interesting. Great. I'm afraid we probably hit the time, but I'll be around a little bit after here. But I think we probably hit the time of official questions. Is it right?
Okay, you have the microphone already. It's the last one.
Oh, really? Okay, we got one. Where is it? Please stand up. Yes.
How much math do you do every day?
That's a difficult question. It depends. It depends on each day, right? So it depends on the stage of my life that I was in and what I'm doing. So I'll say the time of my life that I was doing the absolute most was early on when I was establishing myself at Carnegie Mellon University, and previously when I was a PhD student. At that point, maybe, I don't know, like 5-6 hours of math, like actually thinking about math a day. Notice it's not 8. There's a lot of other stuff that you have to do. at the same time. You might have to write up a research result, you might have to teach a class. Although if you count that as math too, well then it starts to become the entire day. Right? Then if you count like all the auxiliary things around math, then it becomes the entire day. These days, I'll say that a lot of my emphasis is on this kind of outreach and trying to communicate. So for example, it's funny, you said how much time do you spend doing math? And it's funny, in my head, I already discounted the teaching part. But you shouldn't. I mean, these days I actually spend a lot of my time teaching math, whether it be at Tsinghua University or coming up with new curricula on how you could actually reinvent the way that you would teach mathematics. But if I want to answer your question, I actually don't know the answer. Like it depends every single day. It can go from like all day, it can go to less than a day. But that's also because at this point of my life, I'm also involved in trying to build organizations. So I actually also have to manage a team of people. And I'll say one of the things that I miss a little bit is that once you have to manage a team of people, you spend less of your time directly making all of the stuff, but you do have to make sure that different components of your team are working well together. If you want to know how much time I spent in high school doing math every day, that wasn't so much. Like outside of school, maybe only about 1 hour or 2. Average, maybe 1 hour, average, doing math a day. But if you ask me how much time I spent after school every day doing computer programming, I'll probably answer you 2 hours. But at the same time, like while doing that, you're also learning how to think about mathematics. So if you want to ask a different question, which is how much of my day do I spend doing something that is like quote unquote productive, now I'll give you an answer that's closer to 17. Like that, because the point is like, at this point I play a bigger strategy. The bigger strategy is called how to actually make a world where people think math is interesting and important. At that point that might involve strategizing on how to do a video with a cheerleading squad in New Jersey. Is that actually math? Not necessarily. Is the strategy of thinking of what to do informed by being a mathematician? Absolutely. And is being filmed on the mathematics? I don't know, does it count? Maybe, maybe not, but that was like 5 hours. So this is my answer to your question. Eventually you have a goal, and the goal doesn't have to be defined in like spending time in one particular bucket or another, but if you're really motivated to achieve your goal, the day just feels too short. And you don't want to eat. Like, it's not that you want to starve, but you're just like, come on, can I just eat faster, right? Can I just sleep less? Is there a way to get done what I want to get done? Ideally try to get to that point on something you care about, and then you go very far. Thank you.